dark corners and hidden terrors. 5 horror stories you won't forget.
1. The Inherited Nightmare. The Inherited Nightmare. It was a gloomy afternoon when I received the letter that would forever change the course of my life. The envelope, yellowed with age and sealed with crimson wax, bore the seal of my distant relative, Elena Blackwood. I had never met Elena, but the letter informed me of her passing and revealed that she had left me something unimaginable. Blackwood Manor, a decaying old mansion perched on a desolate hillside. As I approached the crumbling gate of the estate, an eerie chill washed over me, and the sky seemed to darken. The mansion loomed before me, an imposing structure wrapped in ivy, its windows staring like vacant eyes. The very sight of it sent shivers down my spine. I hesitated at the threshold, the ancient door creaking open of its own accord. Inside, the air was thick with dust and the scent of decay. Cobwebs draped from the ceiling like sinister curtains, and the floorboards groaned beneath my hesitant steps. The first night was the worst. I could feel a presence, an unsettling energy that seemed to pervade every inch of the mansion. As I lay in the grand but frayed bed, I heard faint whispers that drifted through the corridors, whispers of despair, of secrets long buried. It was in the library, a room filled with shelves upon shelves of aged books, that I first encountered the inexplicable. As I browsed through the volumes, a sudden coldness gripped me. I turned to see a ghostly figure, a woman in a Victorian-era gown, her eyes hollow and sorrowful. Her wailing lament echoed through the room, sending shockwaves of terror through me. The sensation was unbearable, as if I had been submerged in icy water. I stumbled backward, knocking over a stack of books. The apparition faded, leaving me trembling and gasping for air. It was then that I realized the mansion's dark history had come back to haunt me. Night after night, the spectral occurrences intensified. Shadowy figures roamed the corridors, whispering malevolently in a language I couldn't comprehend. The walls themselves seemed to bleed with anguish, weeping crimson tears that dripped and pooled on the decaying floor. One particularly harrowing night, I ventured into the basement, a place I had avoided until then. The air grew thick with foreboding as I descended the creaking stairs. In the dim light, I saw a gruesome sight, a series of shackles and chains, remnants of some macabre torture chamber from centuries past. I could almost hear the agonized screams of those who had suffered within these walls. As I explored the mansion's history, I uncovered a tale of madness and cruelty that spanned generations. Helena Blackwood had been the last in a line of twisted souls who had reveled in darkness and death. Her malevolent spirit still clung to the mansion, seeking to drag me into the abyss of her legacy. Each day, I felt my sanity slipping away, my dreams haunted by the tormented souls of Blackwood Manor. It was as though the house itself was alive, feeding off my fear and despair. I knew I had to confront the malevolent force that held me captive. Armed with ancient texts and rituals, I descended into the depths of the mansion, determined to break the curse that bound me to this house of horrors. The confrontation was agonizing, the malevolent spirits lashing out with a fury I had never imagined. But I pressed on, chanting incantations and wielding symbols of protection. Finally, in a blinding burst of light and a cacophony of wails, the curse shattered. The mansion trembled, and the malevolent force was banished. Exhausted and battered, I emerged from the depths, victorious, but forever scarred by the horrors I had witnessed. I sold Blackwood Manor, eager to rid myself of its dark legacy. But even now, as I dwell in a new, peaceful abode, I can't shake the feeling that the nightmare may not be over. The mansion's haunting legacy lingers, a chilling reminder that some horrors never truly die and some nightmares are passed down through generations, waiting for the next victim to inherit their torment. 2. The Dollhouse Murders. I had always been drawn to the macabre, but nothing could have prepared me for the horrors that awaited me when I took on a case of the Dollhouse Murders. It was a gloomy autumn evening when I received a call from the local police department, a call that would change the course of my life forever. As I walked into the dimly lit room at the precinct, I could feel the weight of the case pressing down on me like an oppressive fog. The detective's desk was cluttered with photographs, crime scene reports, and a peculiar, eerily detailed dollhouse. Detective Anderson, a weathered man with haunted eyes, motioned for me to sit down. "Take a look at this," he said, pushing a file towards me. Inside were gruesome photos of 3 murder scenes, each one more horrifying than the last. The victims had been brutally killed, their bodies posed in grotesque positions that mirrored those of miniature figures inside the dollhouse. "This dollhouse was found at each crime scene," Anderson explained. "It's as if the killer is reenacting the murders on a smaller scale, with disturbing accuracy." I couldn't tear my eyes away from the photographs. The sense of dread that filled the room was palpable. I knew I had to get to the bottom of this case, not only for the sake of justice, but also to quell the nightmares that would surely haunt me if I didn't. My first step was to examine the dollhouse itself. Anderson had it placed on a table in the corner of the room. It was an exquisite, albeit eerie replica of a Victorian mansion. The attention to detail was astonishing, right down to the tiny furniture and lifelike figurines. But what sent shivers down my spine were the miniature crime scenes within. The first room I explored was a bedroom, complete with a blood-spattered bed and a tiny, lifeless doll sprawled out in a grotesque pose. The second room was a kitchen, where a doll with a horrified expression lay on the floor, surrounded by miniature knives and a pool of crimson. The third room was a living room, where a doll sat in an armchair with a noose fashioned from twine hanging ominously above its head. As I examined the dollhouse, I couldn't help but feel an inexplicable sense of foreboding. The scenes were so realistic, it was as though I was peering into the past, witnessing the actual murders unfold before my eyes. Investigation led me to the homes of the victims' families. I interviewed their loved ones, trying to piece together any information that might lead me to the killer. The families were distraught, and the air in their homes was thick with grief and fear. They all mentioned a peculiar sense of being watched, as if an unseen presence lingered in the shadows. Each night, as I delved deeper into the case, I would return to the dollhouse, feeling an undeniable pull towards it. It was as if the sinister energy from the miniature crime scenes had seeped into the very walls of the precinct. I began to have nightmares, vivid, disturbing dreams where I was trapped inside the dollhouse, unable to escape the horrors that unfolded around me. One fateful evening, as I sat alone in the dimly lit room, I heard a soft, eerie laughter. It seemed to come from the direction of the dollhouse. My heart raced as I approached it cautiously. The laughter grew louder, more sinister, and the dolls inside the dollhouse seemed to come to life, their eyes glinting with malevolence. I stumbled back, my breath coming in shallow gasps. I knew then that the dollhouse held the key to solving the case, but it was also a conduit for something far more sinister. I had unwittingly become entangled in a web of malevolent forces beyond my comprehension. As I continued my investigation, the line between reality and the dollhouse's nightmarish world blurred. The murders continued, each one mirroring the scene within the miniature mansion. And with each murder, the laughter grew louder, more menacing, until it echoed through my very soul. I couldn't escape the feeling that the dollhouse was a portal to a dark realm, one where the vengeful spirits of the victims sought justice, and the malevolent presence of the killer lurked in the shadows. But I was determined to uncover the truth, no matter the cost. The dollhouse murders had become a nightmarish journey into the abyss, and I was trapped in its grip. I had to confront the malevolent force that had taken root in that cursed dollhouse, even if it meant delving deeper into the horrors of the past and facing the darkest corners of my own soul. The battle between the living and the dead had begun, and I was the only one who could bring an end to the reign of terror that had gripped our town for far too long. The Whispering Wind. The night began like any other in our quiet little town of Cedarbrook. The moon hung low in the inky sky, casting feeble shadows across the deserted streets. I had just finished locking up my antique shop, the old wooden door creaking as I turned the key. As I walked home, a chill ran down my spine, a subtle unease creeping over me. The air had an eerie stillness about it, as if nature itself held its breath, waiting for something ominous to unfold. I quickened my pace, eager to reach the sanctuary of my home. But the darkness seemed to cling to me, and the sense of foreboding deepened with each step. As I turned the corner onto Elm Street, I heard it for the first time. A soft, barely audible whisper that seemed to ride on the gentle night breeze. At first, I dismissed it as a trick of my tired mind, but it persisted, growing in intensity. The whispering wind was no longer a mere murmur, but a haunting, ethereal voice that wrapped itself around my consciousness. I halted, my heart pounding in my chest, my breath hitching in my throat. The voice seemed to beckon, to taunt, and I couldn't resist its pull. My fingers trembled as I touched my ears, convinced they were playing tricks on me. But the voice, cold and merciless, seeped deeper into my mind. It spoke of things unspeakable, of horrors hidden beneath the veil of reality. It whispered secrets from the darkest corners of human existence, tales of madness and violence that sent shivers down my spine. I tried to run, to escape its insidious grip, but my legs betrayed me, keeping me rooted to the spot. The town around me had transformed into a nightmarish landscape. Dimly lit windows revealed frenzied shadows moving within, their silhouettes dancing to the tune of the whispering wind. The once peaceful streets now echoed with the sounds of breaking glass and maniacal laughter. My vision blurred as the voice in the wind intensified, assaulting my senses. The air grew thick with a stench of fear and desperation, and I could taste the metallic tang of blood on my tongue. I felt a terrible compulsion, an irresistible urge to join the madness that had taken hold of my neighbors. In a daze, I stumbled forward, drawn towards the heart of the chaos. The disembodied voice in the wind grew louder, a cacophony of madness that threatened to consume me. I could see the frenzied faces of my fellow townsfolk, their eyes vacant and hollow, their actions driven by an otherworldly force. As I reached the town square, the source of the voice became clear. A gnarled, ancient tree at its center, its branches twisting and contorting like the writhing tendrils of a malevolent creature. The voice emanated from the very core of the tree, its roots delving deep into the dark, cursed earth. I knew then that I had to confront the source of this madness, to free my town from the grip of the whispering wind. With every ounce of strength left in me, I reached out and touched the cursed tree, feeling a surge of unimaginable dread and power course through my veins. In that moment, I became one with the wind, my mind merging with the voice that had driven us all to madness. It was a horrifying union, but in that moment, it was my only hope of breaking the curse. I can still hear the whispers in my mind echoing through the endless corridors of my consciousness. The town of Siddelbrook is forever changed, and I am left to wander, a disembodied voice in the wind, forever haunted by the relentless horror of the whispering wind. 4. The Forest of Shadows. The sun hung low on the horizon, casting long, eerie shadows across the dense foliage of the forest. Our group of hikers had ventured deep into the heart of the wilderness, hoping to reconnect with nature and escape the demands of our daily lives. Little did we know that the forest we had entered was no ordinary woods. It was the infamous Forest of Shadows. The first inkling of something amiss came when our compasses started spinning wildly, pointing us in conflicting directions. We brushed it off as a magnetic anomaly, but unease began to settle in our hearts. As we trudged deeper into the forest, the oppressive silence weighed on us, the usual sounds of nature eerily absent. The trees, gnarled and twisted, seemed to close in around us, their branches clawing at the sky like skeletal fingers. The forest floor was shrouded in perpetual darkness, even though the sun should have illuminated our path. Our flashlights barely pierced the thick, suffocating gloom, casting weak beams that dissolved into nothingness. The air grew frigid, causing our breath to form ghostly plumes in the dim light. Each step felt like a battle against an invisible force, as if the very forest itself resisted our presence. Uneasiness turned to fear, and fear to dread as we realized we had lost our way. Panic threatened to consume us, but there was no turning back. Every path we took seemed to lead us deeper into the shadows. As night descended upon us, the forest came alive in a nightmarish display of unnatural phenomena. The trees, with their twisted forms, began to move of their own accord, their roots writhing like serpents in the dark soil. It was as if the forest had a malevolent consciousness, a sinister intelligence that sought to ensnare us. Desperate, we called out for help, our voices swallowed by the all-encompassing silence. It was then that the trees themselves became our tormentors. They whispered, their voices a chilling susurration that echoed through the night. They whispered promises of escape, of safety, of a way out, but their whispers were laden with deceit. We followed their treacherous guidance, our steps guided by a force beyond our control. The forest seemed to warp and shift around us, the very ground beneath our feet betraying our senses. Reality blurred into a nightmarish dreamscape, and we lost all sense of time and direction. Exhausted and on the brink of despair, we stumbled upon a clearing bathed in an eerie, otherworldly light. At its center stood a colossal tree, its roots forming a grotesque, living cage. The whispers grew louder, more insistent, urging us to step closer to the monstrous tree. But something within me resisted. With a surge of willpower, I broke free from the tree's beguiling pull and turned to my fellow hikers, their faces contorted by fear and confusion. I yelled for them to snap out of it, to resist the enchantment of the forest. Together, we retreated from the clearing, our hearts pounding in our chests. The forest of shadows seemed to hiss in frustration, its malevolence palpable. We continued to wander, lost and disoriented, but at least we were free from the tree's sinister grasp. Hours turned into days, and the forest never released its grip on us. We eventually emerged, battered and broken, but alive. The experience in the forest of shadows would forever haunt our nightmares, a testament to the malevolent force that dwelled within those cursed woods, where the trees themselves came alive to lead us deeper into darkness. 5. The Soul Swap. It all began innocently enough. I was a curious and imaginative young girl, spending countless hours alone in my room, surrounded by my cherished dolls and books. The antique mirror that adorned one of my bedroom walls had always fascinated me. Its ornate frame and smoky, aged glass seemed to hold a hidden world within. Little did I know that this mirror would unlock a sinister secret, the ability to swap places with my own reflection. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon and twilight bathed my room in a soft, ethereal glow, I stood before the mirror, staring at my own reflection. The mirror's surface rippled like water, drawing me in with an irresistible allure. A strange compulsion took hold of me, and without thinking, I reached out and touched the mirror. A shock coursed through my body as my hand made contact with the cold glass, and suddenly, I found myself on the other side. I had traded places with my own reflection, stepping into a mirror world that mirrored my own reality, yet differed in unsettling ways. The room I entered was a twisted, nightmarish version of my own. The walls were adorned with grotesque, twisted caricatures of my dolls, their glassy eyes filled with malevolence. The air was heavy with a foul stench, and a suffocating darkness seemed to seep from every corner. My heart pounded in my chest as I explored this ominous mirror world, each step leading me further into the unknown. I soon realized that the sinister secrets of this realm went beyond its unsettling appearance. I encountered grotesque, shadowy figures that moved with unnatural grace, lurking just beyond the edge of my vision. They whispered dark secrets and haunting melodies that sent shivers down my spine. My every instinct screamed at me to flee, but I was trapped, unable to return to my own world. As I ventured deeper into the mirror world, I stumbled upon a decaying mansion. Its grandeur faded into grotesque decay. The mansion's rooms were filled with disturbing scenes, a banquet hall where grotesque, writhing creatures feasted on nightmarish delicacies, a library filled with forbidden tomes that whispered forbidden knowledge, and a chamber of mirrors, each one reflecting a different facet of my own life, but all distorted and twisted. I soon realized that the mirror world was a prison, a dark reflection of my own soul, where my deepest fears and desires were brought to life. The sinister secrets I uncovered were my own, hidden away in the darkest recesses of my consciousness. Desperation gripped me as I sought a way to escape this horrifying reality. The mirror world had a malevolent intelligence of its own, taunting and tormenting me. It reveled in my fear and despair, drawing strength from my suffering. In a moment of clarity, I remembered how I had entered this cursed realm by touching the mirror. With trembling hands, I reached out and pressed my hand against the glass once more. The world around me twisted and contorted, and I felt the same shocking jolt as before. When I opened my eyes, I was back in my own room, gasping for breath, drenched in sweat. The antique mirror remained as it had always been, smoky and aged, concealing the sinister secrets of the mirror world. I never dared to touch the mirror again, but the memory of that horrifying encounter still haunts my dreams. I had discovered the ability to trade places with my reflection, but the mirror world had revealed the darkest corners of my own soul, a place of sinister secrets and nightmarish terrors that I could never forget. Which story caught your attention the most? Let us know in the comments below. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more content. Until next time, stay safe. And thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed today's video. Check out my website in the description below to see what I'm writing. And just below there's some suggestions related to what we talked about today. Peace.